the day has finally come. I'm going to talk about my stupid hands. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. You've picked a really interesting time to join. I've barely posted anything in a year. I've put out 2 or 3 videos. I put out Christmas songs ranking and then my librarians tier ranking, which is split in 2. But other than that, I haven't put anything out in over a year. And if you've been following my channel for a long time, you probably have some sense of why, because I have made a few posts about it, but also if you go back through my older videos, you will notice me commenting on being in pain. You'll see every now and then if I wave my hands in front of the screen, you'll see that I have arm splints on. There have been a variety of times where you can see that my hands, there's something wrong with my arms. And I am finally at a point where we should be on the road to recovery. I would say fingers crossed, but I physically can't. But hopefully, with any luck, we're on the road to recovery. So now seems like a good time to go through the entire ordeal, because it really was an ordeal and it should never have taken as long as it did to get resolved. And so I want to talk about it for a variety of reasons, but one of the big things is that I really want to talk about advocating for yourself when it comes to your health, because my story involves my hands, but I have so many stories, and so does everybody else that I know, about times where you are not believed and not taken seriously by the medical professionals that are supposed to be providing you with help for your symptoms. And your conditions and whatever it is that you've got going on. So it's very much a story about that, and I really want to talk about it because I think it's really important, because I wouldn't be on the road to recovery if I hadn't fought for it. And that shouldn't be a situation anyone should be in. You shouldn't have to fight for your own health. But if I had just accepted what I was told, then I don't even know what position I would be in now, because I probably wouldn't actually have any function left in my hands if I followed what they were telling me. So let's get into it, shall we? I don't have a script for this because I can't type one. So I'm just going to wing it. So it might end up getting a bit jumbled, but I'm going to try my best to tell it in a way that makes sense. But I apologise if it comes out a bit all over the shop, but I'm going to do my best. I have brought my folder of medical letters, which doesn't even have all of them in it, because after I finally got listened to and I didn't need to be providing evidence of everything that I'd been going through, I didn't need to bring the folder anymore, so I stopped putting things in it. So this only takes us up to, I think, April of last year, and I've had many letters since, so there's so much more than just that. But anyway, so our story really begins in 2023, but it kind of properly begins in 2022, so I'm going to start there. 2022, I buy a PS5. That's really where this story begins. It's sitting over there, I can see it. I had money because I had a relative die and they left me some money in their will, so I bought myself a PS5 because I've always been a PlayStation person. I've had every PlayStation apart from the handhelds. I still have my PS1, 2, 3 and 4, and I have my 5, and I still have the boxes for all of them because I'm just a little Sony pony, what can I say? Or I was. I'm less of a fan of Sony now. Anyway, I got the PS5 and everything was hunky-dory for a while, but when I went back at one point, when I was trying to prove something to a doctor, I went back into my Twitter and searched for the word pain to try and see if I could find where I first started talking about having this pain, because it's all well and good for me to turn up and say, I'm sure it started at X time, but it would be better if I had physical proof to say, look, you can see me on this date talking about the symptoms. This is clearly where it started. And when I went back to try and find it, I actually found tweets from the latter half of 2022 where I was talking about the pain in my hands, meaning that I actually had it longer than I thought I did. but it didn't really properly become a problem, something I was really concerned about until the summer of 2023. But I think it began due to the PS5 controller. The DualSense controller is huge. It's way too big for my hands. I would bring it over and show you, but I can't be bothered getting up. It's way too big for me. I have very small hands. I don't know if you can tell, and because they look in proportion to me, but if you see them up against another person's hands, you will see that my hands are very small. And they are too small and my wrists are very small as well. I have very, very small wrists. As you can see, I can wrap my entire finger and thumb around my wrist. I have very small wrists, and the PS5 controller is just too big and too heavy. It weighs a ton, and I get they want it to do all these cool things, but I can't even use them. You know, I have all the haptic feedback, the triggers and everything turned off because it's too big for my hands and it's too uncomfortable to use, and I don't like it. When it does the haptic feedback and stuff, it's too much for my hands. But even then, it's still too big and it's still uncomfy to use. But anywho, so I think that's where the problem really started, was from the DualSense. Would I love to get compensation from Sony for them kickstarting this whole problem? Yes. Did I actually try to speak to someone at Sony about it? Yes. Did they ever get back to me? No. No. But I thought I would try, but no. I didn't hear anything back from Sony. Fair enough. It would be impossible to prove that this problem was actually caused by the DualSense, even though it clearly was, but never mind. So I got a PS5, it was really painful, and it definitely started causing problems. I really found Death Stranding incredibly uncomfortable because you have to spend the whole game holding the triggers. That game, Hideo Kojima, I love you. I think you're a master of your craft, but that was not a good gameplay mechanic. That's not comfortable to play. But I didn't play it very much because it was too uncomfy. Things were fine. I played a few different games. I played Horizon Forbidden West. I played Astro's Playroom. I played Ratchet and Clank. I played The Quarry. You can see me on my channel playing The Quarry. I played Sherlock Holmes Chapter 1. I played a bunch of games on it and I was fine. The problem didn't really start until I got Power Wash Simulator. Now, I'm not blaming Power Wash Simulator. I love Power Wash Simulator and I still bought the second one in spite of everything. Because I love Power Wash Simulator. It's one of the best games ever made. But anyone who's ever played Power Wash Simulator knows that game is addictive, and once you start, you just want to keep cleaning, and you keep telling yourself, like, I'll just clean this little bit. Oh no, I'll just do this bit over here. I'll just this bit. Oh no, I finished the level. Well, I'll just start the next one and see what it's like, and you end up on it for hours. And I knew I was playing it too much. I knew I was addicted. It was, you know, giving me way too much dopamine. And I remember saying one day in my work chat, because I work from home, I was in Teams, and I remember saying, my hands are quite sore today. I think I've played too much Power Wash Simulator. And at the time, I just thought it was like RSI, because anyone who games knows that there are times where you just push it too far, or you've been doing like a particularly bad boss level where you've been mashing buttons and you've just given yourself a bit of pain. You know, you've strained a muscle or something. It'll get better. You know, leave it for a couple of weeks or whatever and it'll be fine. And that's what I thought. So I was like, I just won't play for a little while and I'm sure it'll get better. So it seemed to get better. I forgot to say the date. This is now July of 2023. This is where the story really begins. So it's July of 2023 and I've been playing so much Power Wash Simulator and my hands are sore. So I leave it for a few weeks, I don't play, and I'm like, I'll just give them some time to rest. And I assume they seem to be getting better, so then I try playing again, but they're still getting sore. And I notice that it's happening more and more, and it's happening pretty much every time I try and play my games, or even when I do other things. I notice they're starting to become quite painful a lot of the time. The pain at this point isn't as severe as it becomes, but it's all across here, around the base of my palm. That's really painful. I should say I've got horrendous bruising here from my latest surgery. We'll get to the surgeries, but if I touch here, it's really sore. But across here and like up into my thumb. And I'm like, well, that makes sense because, you know, when you hold a controller, you know, you're holding it with your thumbs, like that makes sense. I probably like strained something. So I give it a few months, it gets to October and they're still not getting any better. And I'm like, right, maybe I need something. Like, I don't know what I need, but like, this isn't good. Like, this is now, you know, July, August, September, October. Like, we've now been doing this for like 3-4 months. I don't think they should be still this painful. So I contact my GP. I put in an e-consult form. If you don't know, if you don't have e-consult, basically it's like a form. You fill it in, you say all your symptoms and everything. It goes to your surgery. Someone triages it and decides what to do next, whether or not like you get an appointment, who you get an appointment with, all that kind of stuff. So they book me in with a physiotherapist, and I'm like, that makes sense. Physiotherapist, it's in like, you know, it's a muscle or something, like this makes sense. So I go see the physiotherapist and she says, sounds like tendonitis. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. So she gives me these little splints. They're little hand splints, thumb support splints. They kind of like come down here and like across here and around here. I probably still have them, but I couldn't tell you where they are. Because I very quickly, well, I eventually discovered I shouldn't be using them, but we'll get to that. There's going to be a lot of it, we'll get to that in this story. So I go to the physiotherapist, she gives me these splints, and she says, probably tendonitis. Take ibuprofen. And I say, I can't take ibuprofen because I can't. It doesn't mix well with my antidepressants. It can cause bleeding. And also, I was on really strong anti-inflammatories for years for my periods, which has completely destroyed my stomach lining, which is why I also have chronic gastritis. So I'm like, I can't really take ibuprofen. And she's like, nah, fine, okay. We'll give you ibuprofen gel. You can put it on your skin. It won't do it, you know, then it's not going to affect you the way that the pills do. Like, it'll just go straight in through your skin. I'm like, yeah, cool, fine. So I take the ibuprofen gel and she books me in to get bloods taken because they want to check for inflammatory markers. This was something I didn't even know was a thing at the time, but if they can do blood tests and they can see if you have inflammation, which I would do if I had tendonitis. So I trek along to see my nurse, and I feel slightly better talking to her because I felt kind of ashamed trying to explain what it was to the physiotherapist, because to say I think I've given myself an injury from playing Power Wash Simulator too much is embarrassing. Like, there's no way around it. Like, saying that you've injured yourself, I don't really know why it's embarrassing, because, you know, if you injured yourself playing a sport, you know, if you injured yourself playing football, or, you know, from getting hit with a volleyball the wrong way or whatever, you wouldn't feel shame. But there's something about the way that people look on video games as like a loser thing, you know, that's what losers do, that live in their mum's basement and all this kind of stuff, that I didn't really want to be perceived as like a loser, basically. I didn't want her to look at me and not, I think that was that. I was afraid that she wouldn't want to help me because if I said it was caused by playing video games too much, I was worried she would be like, well, that's your own fault, get a better hobby. But I did make the point that even so, I don't play video games excessively. I get migraines for a start, so I can't play video games for more than a few hours in a day because I'll get a migraine. I just do, or just like a really, really bad, if it's not like a proper migraine, I get like a really bad like headache across my eyes, you know, I give myself eye strain. And this has been the way it's always been with me. But because I know I can trigger migraines, I make sure I don't do things that have the ability to trigger it. So I don't play video games excessively. I'm not one of these people, you know, people who do like 24-hour charity streams and stuff. I don't know how they do it, because if I play a game for more than 2 hours, I'm gonna feel that in my head for a day. And it's whenever I have triggered one of those headaches, it's really hard to get rid of. It makes me physically nauseous. I get really sick. Like, I can't function at all. So it's like a thing I really, really try to avoid. So I'm like, I'm not playing for hours and hours a day. I'm talking about maybe like an hour or two in the evening. I was working. So like, I'm not sitting all day playing because I'm at work. But when I'm at work, obviously I'm on a keyboard all day, I work on a computer, so I spend all day like this. And when I'm not like this, I'm like this because I'm typing on my phone. And when I'm not doing any of those things, I'm drawing, so I'm like this. Or I'm sewing, so I'm like this. I'm like, everything that I do in my day involves using my hands. So I'm not saying it's entirely from playing games, because the reality is that even when I'm not doing that, even when I'm trying to rest my hands, I can't actually rest them because I'm using them to do everything else. So I make that point, but when I go to my nurse is a video gamer. She's a huge gamer. She has a Kirby mouse mat. She has like Pac-Man ghosts on her wall. She has Funko Pops everywhere in her office. Like, she's totally into games. So I feel okay saying to her, I think I might have done myself damage with the PS5 controller. And she's like, yeah, it's pretty big. And I'm like, yeah, it's like way too big for my hands. Like, what's the deal with that? So she takes my bloods and they go away and they come back as clear. There's no inflammation. And I'm like, well, that's weird, because if I have tendinitis, I mean, that's what that means. Itis of your tendons, inflammation of your tendons. So I'm thinking, that's a bit strange. If I've got tendinitis, where's the inflammation? But I'm like, okay, maybe, I don't know how these things work. I don't know how bad the inflammation needs to be to show up in your bloods. Point is, they're clear. But she's saying, you know, put the ibuprofen gel on. These things can take like a few months to heal. You might not see any results until like after Christmas. And I'm like, yeah, cool. I get that. So I leave it. So I'm putting the ibuprofen gel on, I'm wearing my splints, and I'm trying to get on with my life. We get to Christmas, and this now crosses over to another video you might have seen on my account a few years ago, which is my one where I got diagnosed with POTS. So I'm not going to go into that because that's like a whole other topic. And I've already made a video about it. But basically, at the end of 2023, I got COVID for the third time. And after I got over the COVID and, you know, symptoms stopped and I was testing negative again, I still felt really off. I was so out of breath. I had no energy. I was really fatigued. And my heart was like hammering in my chest all the time. I was getting palpitations. It was always beating way too fast. And I got really concerned because I'm like, what the hell is wrong with me? And when it's your heart, I have a family history of heart problems. Various people in my family have had stents, bypasses, angina. Like, there's a whole history of heart problems in my family. So as soon as something goes wrong with my heart, I'm concerned, because it's, you know, it's very possible that I'm going to be the next one to get a heart problem. So I'm back off to the GP again. And she says she thinks it's probably POTS brought on by the COVID, which at the time made sense to me, but actually, I mean, I'll add this here because I don't think I said it in my video about POTS, but since I've been like more aware of POTS and read up more and understand the symptoms and stuff a lot more, I realized that I think I probably had it my entire life, or at least since I was very young, and just didn't know. And it was just that particular bout of COVID made the symptoms a lot worse, which was why I suddenly noticed it. Because the thing is, with any chronic illness, if you've had it since you were a child, you don't know that the way that you are is different. You know what I mean? Like, I thought it was normal. I thought everybody felt sick after an hour of PE at school. I thought everyone almost passed out from going on the treadmill for like 10 minutes. I thought it was normal to not be able to like go for a jog because you'll get so out of breath that you feel as if you're going to physically throw up. I thought it was normal to get so hot that it makes you feel like you're going to die. Like, and I'm talking like 20 degrees. I thought it was normal. I thought all these things were normal. I thought everyone was like that. And yeah, it's not. It's actually not. Actually, people don't feel sick when they go to the gym. I thought that was just what happens when you go to the gym. I thought everyone felt like that. I thought it was normal to be like, oh, if I don't get off this rowing machine right now, I'm going to physically throw up. I thought everyone was like that. And I realize now that they're not. And other people's bodies actually regulate temperature. I didn't know that. And other people's bodies, they don't go deaf in one ear temporarily and have this really loud ringing sound, like just randomly during the day. I didn't know that. So my point is, I think I probably had POTS my entire life and didn't know about it. Just as an update on that one. But my point is, I was back to the doctor about that, and I was still in pain with the hands, but the fact that I was concerned that I was having some kind of heart failure had completely overridden my concern about my hands. I was, obviously my hands were still sore, but I was much more concerned about the fact that I thought I was going to die. So I was dealing with that, and then I was really fatigued, and I just wasn't well, and it took me a good few months before, I think it probably was like a post-COVID kind of thing that had exacerbated the symptoms so badly, like a sort of long COVID type thing. So it took me a good few months before I really started to feel my normal level of potsy instead of this like exacerbated level of potsy. So it gets to the end of April and my hands are so painful. The symptoms are off the scale. And I go up the stairs because my boyfriend's upstairs in his computer, and I go upstairs and I go and sit down in the chair in there and I just start crying. And I'm like, I'm in so much pain. Like, this is unbearable. I don't know how I'm supposed to live like this. And he's like, we'll go back to the doctor because obviously, what they gave you, these hand splints, this ibuprofen gel, it's not worked. She also gave me a bunch of like hand strengthening exercises, which I was doing like every day, like she told me. And again, it wasn't working. If anything, it was just painful. Like doing the hand strengthening exercises hurt. And I'm like, I know sometimes, no pain, no gain, but I feel like it's making it worse. Like, I don't think that they're getting stronger. I feel like I'm just making the pain worse. So I put another e-consult in and I say, I went to see the physiotherapist in November. This is what she said. Nothing has worked. It's worse now than ever. I think I need to see the GP because I think there's something really wrong here. So they put me in to see the GP. So this is now the beginning of May. And I go off to see the GP. So I go into him and I tell him what's going on. And I'll use this point to tell you what my symptoms actually are. So the main symptom is tingling, but I always feel like I need to clarify what I mean by that, because every time I mention that, I've had even the medical professionals, I've got a letter in this file that says like about your pins and needles, and I'm like, it's not pins and needles. Pins and needles is like when you've been sitting on your foot and it's went to sleep and then the feeling comes back into it and it goes, you get pins and needles. We know what pins and needles are. That's not what this is. I'm like, I know what pins and needles are. This is a completely different thing, but it's really hard to explain what your pain is to someone. And I kept saying, like, I wish I could, like, mentally project the pain onto them, like some kind of, like, what do you call it? Jane from Twilight. Like, I wish I could project it so that they could feel what I feel and then they could identify what that means, because I'm like, it's really hard for me to verbally explain how this feels. So what I ended up using is examples where it feels like I'm being electric shocked all the time. I'm like, it's tingling, but it's like electric. I'm like, if you imagine when you touch a trolley in the supermarket and it's gone static and you get like a shock in your hand, it's like that, but all over, all through my hand. Not just like when you touch the trolley, but like every single like minuscule bit of my hand is getting shocked all at the same time. Or alternatively, in the inside of my hand, it feels like it's full of scrunched up newspaper. I'm like, if you imagine, instead of my hand being filled with like muscles and tendons, it's filled with newspaper. And every time I move, you feel that scrunched up newspaper scratch against the inside of your skin. That's how it feels. I'm like, if you imagine the feeling of newspaper rubbing against your skin, but on the inside, that's how it feels. I'm like, and it's sharp and it's hot and it's electric and it's all through my hands 24/7. I'm like, it's not an ache. It's not pain like, like when you pull a muscle or you strain something. Like, it's not that kind of ache. I'm like, it is an electric shock, burning sensation through my wrist, palm, thumb, finger, finger, finger. Not so much this one, but occasionally. But predominantly wrist, palm, thumb, finger, finger, finger. And through here. And it's constant. I'm like, it used to be temperamental. It used to come and go. It used to be only when I was doing something. But I'm like, now it's constant. And I'm like, and I've tried so many different things in terms of trying to rest them. I'm like, first of all, the PS5 controller I thought was too big. So I only played PS4 games, and at first that was fine, but then that started to hurt. So then I tried only playing the PS3 because the controller is even smaller and lighter again, and it started off okay, and then it started to hurt. I'm like, you know, then I thought I'll just play the Switch because the Switch is a completely different shape, and that was fine, and then it started to hurt. I'm like, and then everything started to hurt. I'm like, it's not just, I'm like, I know that at first I feel like it was triggered by playing video games too much. I'm like, but now it's got nothing to do with that. I'm like, I've given up. And I had at this point made the decision that I can't play video games anymore at all. It's just too painful. It's too painful. I can't do it. I'm like, so I'm not even doing that anymore. But I'm like, I've had to give up everything. I'm like, I can't hold a pen or a pencil. I'm like, I can't do art. I can't even write notes at work. I can't hold a pen anymore because it's so painful. I'm like, it hurts. I'm like, I'll give you a list of the things that are painful. And this is the thing that I ended up having to bring up so many times, because I felt like they kept getting the ideas like, you know, I can't do my hobbies, which is a huge problem, and did and still does, because I'm still not at the point where I can. It caused me a huge amount of mental health problems. Like this, it's not being able to do things that bring me joy has given me horrendous mental health. My mental health is terrible at the moment. But I'm like, it's not just about that. I'm like, these are the things that are painful. Brushing my hair, brushing my teeth, trying to cook my dinner, washing the dishes, opening doors, flushing the toilet, unlocking things with the key. Like, anything that involves using your hands hurts. Trying to get plugs out of the sockets. Like, and of course, the big one, doing my freaking job. Having to work on a computer all day, which I can't not do. I'm like, I can give up games, I can give up art, I can give up crafts, I can give up all my hobbies, but I can't give up my job because that's the only reason I have any money. I'm like, this is a problem, because I'm like, it's not the case of, oh, like, rest your hands, it'll get better. I can't rest my hands when I need them to live. I'm like, I can't not go to the bathroom. I can't not open doors. I can't not brush my hair, brush my teeth. Like, these are all basic human functions that I'm in so much pain, and I can't not do them to try and rest, because then how am I going to live? I would need a full-time carer. And this is ridiculous. I'm like, I can't get a full-time carer because my hands hurt. You know what I mean? Like, that's not... Like, I would need my boyfriend to give up his job to look after me. Then we'll have no money because then neither of us have got a job. I can't get a live-in carer or something from, like, the council because I'm not disabled. Like, this is not a disability. This is a pain problem. I can't function. And this is where I was at. This was the argument. I had this conversation so many times with so many people until I thought I was losing my mind. And we'll get to those situations. But anyway, this is me at the GP. And I'm saying this to him, like, this is how much pain I'm in. These are the symptoms. It's in both hands. It's 24/7. There is no reprieve. There is no rest. It doesn't come and go. It's a constant thing. I'm in agony. Help me. Help me. And I'm like, also, it's now the beginning of May. This started in July. Like, if it was going to get better by now, it would have. You know, I get that sometimes these things take a while to heal, but we're going on most of a year now. We're at the 5th month. It was in the 7th month, so we're like 10 months I've been doing this. It's not going to get any better on its own. It needs help. So he says to me, do you have any history of carpal tunnel in your family? And I'm like, kind of. I'm like, my gran had carpal tunnel surgery. Both of my aunts got it when they were pregnant. but directly from my parents, no. I'm like, neither of my parents have ever had it, but some of the women in my family have. Um, and he's like, okay. And he's like, okay. And they call them Phelan's and Tinel tests. They're basically like, they get your hands and they manipulate them into certain positions and they say, what do you feel? And if you get certain symptoms as a response to the way that they're manipulating your hands, that's a sign that you have carpal tunnel. So he does these Phelan's and Tinel's tests. And he's like, yeah, you're definitely like, the responses are suggesting that you have carpal tunnel, and you might not have a direct family history, but it does sound as if there is, genetically, maybe because it's in your family, it's elsewhere in your family, and those are definitely the symptoms of carpal tunnel. So yeah, it does sound like it, but I can't diagnose that. It has to come from the hospital. And I'm like, right, okay. And this is the start of where it all goes wrong. It's like this is already my second person I've had to speak to, and you will truly not believe how many more people I will have to speak to. So he says, you're gonna have to go to the hospital. I'll put in a referral to orthopedics. And I'm like, great, that's great. How long do you think it'll be? He's like, I don't know. And I'm like, cool. Great. But I'm like, right, at least I'm on the road now. At least we're on the path. We have a probable diagnosis. He can't diagnose it, but we have, probably what it is. I can go look into it. I can go and look for like remedies and stuff or things I can do at home. And then I'm going to go to the hospital. They're going to diagnose me, and then I'm going to get fixed. So I'm feeling quite good coming out here. Now, bearing in mind, this is May of 2024. And as we sit right now, I got this done last week in January of 2026. So yeah, we're nowhere near the point where this gets resolved. We're nowhere near. So I'm desperate to know how long I'm expected to wait. So I go on the internet and I find that for NHS Scotland, you can contact, it's they call it like the patient response team or something. I've got it on my phone, but I'm using my phone to record because I've spoke to them so many times. It's like the patient feedback team or something. You can phone them and they can give you a rough idea of the wait times. So I contact them and they say, you're looking at 6 months for orthopedics right now. And I'm like, oh, because it's May. So 6 months from May is what? May, June, July, August, September, like November, October, November. And I'm like, oh. She's like, but we can put you down for a short notice cancellation appointment. So if someone cancels their appointment, we can phone you and give you it'll be like 2 days notice or something and see if you can come in. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, I can do that. I can take time off work, really quickly. That's fine. So that's what I do. And eventually I get a call to say, can I go in on the 3rd of August? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So 3rd of August, I trek up to the hospital and I go in and I meet with a physiotherapist, which I'm confused about because when he said I was going to have to go to orthopedics, I kind of thought I was going to go and see an orthopedic consultant. Now, I'm not disparaging physiotherapists. It's just that the way that he was talking made it sound as if I was going to need to see a doctor because I would need to be diagnosed. So I would need to be seeing like a consultant who could do the diagnostic process. So I was like, okay, this is a bit weird. Why am I meeting a physiotherapist? I've already seen a physiotherapist a few months ago. Like I thought I was seeing a consultant. Didn't say this to her, but that's what I'm thinking to myself. So she comes in, she's like, what's your problem? And I'm explaining all the symptoms. I'm saying that all the things I can't do. I'm in pain, yada, yada. Also, I'm wearing splints at this point because my GP had told me that the splints that I'd been given by the physiotherapist when she thought it was tendonitis, he's like, these won't be helping at all because they're not the right shape. They're not doing anything to support the carpal tunnel, which is here. Your carpal tunnel is here. Runs through your wrist and into your hand. He's like, it's not doing anything to support that, so you're not going to be getting any help from these. So he recommended different splints. So I got them and I'd been wearing them for months at this point. The whole time since I'd got them in May, I've been wearing them and they had been helping. With carpal tunnel splints, you can correct, or at least you can stave off your carpal tunnel sometimes, if it's not too severe yet, you wear them at night and it holds your wrists in a specific position that prevents like further damage to the nerve in the tunnel. And it can stave it off. I'd also been wearing them for work because it meant that I wasn't bending my hand in like a bad position when I was working. It was like keeping my wrists like level, so like giving more like flow to the tunnel. So I took them with me to show to her to like say like this is what I've been wearing, and she's like, well, I mean if they're not helping, I wouldn't wear them. And I'm like, no, like they are a bit, but like they're not. I'm not symptom free, but like they are helping a bit with the pain. And she's like, okay. And I'm saying like how much trouble I'm having and all the things I do. So she's like, okay, give me your hand. So she does a phalanx and tunnels test. And she goes, yeah, I mean, it sounds like carpal tunnel from what you're saying, but I can't diagnose that. And I'm like, but that's why I was sent here. She's like, yeah, but we can't diagnose carpal tunnel. You have to have a nerve conduction study, and you need to have that in Glasgow because we don't do that here. They're the only hospital that does it. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, okay, well, how long is the waiting list for that? And she's like, I don't know, a few months or something. And I'm like, but I came here to be diagnosed. And she's like, yeah, but we can't diagnose you. So at this point, I leave and I'm in tears because I'm furious. I was like, what? What was the point of me coming here then? And if I hadn't phoned up and got put on the short notice cancellation list, I would have waited 6 months to go to this appointment where she did the exact same thing that the GP did a phalanx tunnels test and said, sounds like carpal tunnel, but I can't diagnose it, you have to go somewhere else. I'm like, there was no point in me coming here. There's no point in me coming here. I was furious, and my dad had driven me because, I mean, I can't drive anyway, I don't have a license, but even if I could not drive with these hands. Like, I can't hold a pen, I definitely can't hold a steering wheel. So I come out and I'm like furious and I'm like sobbing. My dad's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I cannot believe what I've just had in there. And I'm walking out and I saw their like biohazard sharps bin, and literally I was so tempted to kick it over. I was so angry I wanted to kick over the bin. But then I was like, no, because then I'm like, it's not actually going to help at all, because it's just going to be some poor nurse or porter or something that's going to have to pick up all the biohazards. But there was a part of me that just was so angry that I was like, I'm going to kick over the sharps bin. But I didn't. I restrained myself. But I was like, that was a pointless trip to the hospital. I'm like, I waited 3 months, but I could have waited 6, which I think is the point. Like, people keep saying like, oh, but at least it was only 3 months. I'm like, yeah, but if I hadn't gone to the trouble of finding out how to contact the patient feedback team and that they have the wait times and stuff, if I hadn't gone to the trouble of finding that out and contacting them, if I just waited for the letter, I would have waited 6 months to go to an appointment where they knew when I was going there that they couldn't do anything for me. That they knew when it was referred to them and said carpal tunnel, they knew that they couldn't actually diagnose that or help me in any way, and that all they were going to do was take me off one list and move me onto another list, take me off the referral to orthopedics and move me onto the neurophysiology referral list and send that off. They knew that this was an appointment that essentially existed for a box ticking exercise. It was literally just to click some buttons on a computer and move me from one list to another. I would have waited 6 months for a box ticking exercise that truly did not need to exist. I'm like, you didn't even need to see me for this. All she did was the exact same test that my GP had done. So it was already done. It didn't need done again. This was the most pointless experience. And I'm like, no. So I go home and I'm furious and I pull out the NHS complaints email address for my health board and I start filing my complaint. And I think it might be in here. I think it might be, it maybe isn't, I'm not sure whether I put it in here or not. Oh, no, I did. 6th of August 2024, complaint regarding diagnostic process from me. My complaint is 3 A4 pages long. When I arrived at my appointment, oh, it was the 5th of August, I thought it was the 3rd. When I arrived at my appointment on the 5th of August, I discovered I was not meeting an orthopaedic doctor like I thought. Instead, I'd referred to another physiotherapist. The physiotherapist performed an identical examination of my hands to the one that my GP did in May and told me that it sounded like carpal tunnel, but she also could not diagnose it and I would need to go to Glasgow for nerve conduction studies and that the wait for this is... What I cannot understand is why this appointment was necessary. Why did I wait 3 months, which would have been 6 months if I hadn't inquired about the wait times, to have the exact same examination from someone who also cannot diagnose carpal tunnel syndrome? Why am I now going on another waiting list for months to get tests for something which 2 medical professionals have said they believe I have? This has been 3 months of waiting for nothing. The appointment did not need to happen. Why could my GP not have referred me for the nerve conduction study himself? If it is a system thing where GPs cannot do that for some reason, then that is not good enough. Patients should not have to suffer because the system requires jumping through hoops. I would have waited 6 months in excruciating pain whilst my condition worsened just for someone to send me elsewhere and provide me no help whatsoever. This is not acceptable. I was so excited to finally speak to a doctor who could help me and hopefully find me a treatment plan whilst I waited for the surgery I'm certain I will need to have. Instead, I received a 5-minute exam of my hands and a blood test with no advice or treatment. It was crushing and I was in tears in the exam room. I know the NHS is under great pressure and I have the utmost respect for that, but this seems counterintuitive. Sending patients to places that cannot help them only adds pressure to the service and prolongs patient suffering. I then go on to explain a bunch of reasons why nerve conduction studies are not actually needed for carpal tunnel, and actually that will become so relevant later. But I point out, it says, I'll just go through it, actually. I put this document, blank. This is the thing, as I said, I'm like, you do not want to mess with an academic, all right? I'm like, I took my academia seriously. I was a queen of referencing. I'm like, do not fucking come at me and think that I won't turn up with receipts because I can get into the medical journals, and I did. And I will come to you with links, with references. You have a fucking Oxford reference system. You'll have a Harvard reference at the bottom of this email. I will send you an email with a fucking bibliography if I have to, but you will listen to me. So, this document from NHS England says if you have severe symptoms and leave them untreated, it can lead to irreversible nerve damage. This means you may have permanent numbness, pain, weakness, or clumsiness. I have had this condition now for over a year, and I am deeply concerned that if it has not caused permanent nerve damage already, it will by the time I actually reach a point where I can receive treatment. I do not want to suffer this pain for the rest of my life due to being passed from pillar to post instead of receiving treatment. This article also states that one of the biggest problems for carpal tunnel sufferers in Scotland is the wait for nerve conduction studies, despite the fact that nerve conduction studies are not always required. It states that there are other ways to diagnose carpal tunnel syndrome without the nerve conduction study. Why is this not an option for me when my symptoms are as severe as they are? It also states one other test or treatment which can aid our diagnosis is response to a steroid injection. A good response or resolution of symptoms is very helpful. I have asked for steroid injections from my doctor and instead was given nerve pain medication. Why can I not access steroid injections despite them being an effective treatment for this pain and being useful in diagnosing the condition? At this point, I feel my condition is not being taken seriously. This is not a minor problem. I am in excruciating pain every single day and it's affecting every aspect of my life. I am self-employed and at this point I am unsure I can continue to work. The pain is worsened by me using the computer, which is necessary for my work, rendering me in agony every day. If I stop working, I will have no income. I am also struggling to perform basic household tasks like cooking, cleaning, doing laundry, taking out the bins, etc. All of this is taking a major toll on my mental health. Finding out yesterday that I'm actually nowhere near receiving treatment has devastated me. It feels pointless to hope for a solution at this point, as I expect by the time I do get to treatment, my hands will be beyond repair and the rest of my life will be spent in this agonising pain. If there's anything that can be done to expedite treatment, even interim treatment, while I wait for the nerve conduction studies, I would be grateful for it. At this point, I am truly desperate and feel abandoned. Kind regards, Lauren. So, that was my rant to the complaints department. And there's a couple of things in there that I kind of forgot to mention that I'll bring them up now. So yeah, I had done research into carpal tunnel before I went to the doctor back to the GP because I'd started to think it was that. At first I did kind of think it probably was tendinitis, but as the symptoms worsened and the tingling and electroshock feeling started, I was like, oh no, these are carpal tunnel syndromes. And I know because I had relatives who had it, so I know what the symptoms of carpal tunnel are. And I was like, yeah, I think this is carpal tunnel. So I looked it up and it said online that, generally speaking, the only treatment really for carpal tunnel is surgery. That you can stave it off, but it usually always ends up coming back. And the only way to actually properly stop it for good is to have the surgery because it's just going to keep worsening. But one of the things that people do prior to surgery, one of the things that they try is steroid injections. So essentially you get like a shit ton of corticosteroid injected into the palm of your hand, and it like fills the space, and it expands the carpal tunnel, which stops it pressing on the nerve. And that for some people has given them relief for a year. Some people actually have managed to avoid surgery entirely by just getting like annual steroid injections, because it gives them long enough relief that like they don't actually need anything else. And I'm like, if that's true and I can get that much relief, then that's what I need. So when I went to see my GP, I was like, can I get steroid injections? Because I've seen online that that's like a really good thing. And he's like, I can't give you steroid injections. But he's like, but I'll put you on painkillers. So he gave me pregabalin. So pregabalin is a really strong painkiller that's usually used, well, it's a really strong medication that's actually used for epilepsy. It's an epilepsy medication, but it's also used for severe nerve pain. And I was taking 3 of them a day, and it wasn't making the slightest bit of difference. And actually, I think it was having side effects. I had some very weird things going on, and I was like, I think the pregabalin's giving me side effects. Also, around the same time, I was reading, you know, Hannah from S Club 7? She had an autobiography, and she had some really bad health issues for a while because she basically got like poisoned by her breast implants. But she didn't know that was what the cause was. And she said in it that she was in so much pain, they put her on a really strong dose of pregabalin, and she actually ended up having to go to rehab to get off them because her body, she couldn't like come off the drugs because they were so strong, and she ended up like basically addicted to them, and she had to go to rehab. And I was like, I don't want that. I'm like, that's the drug that I'm on. I don't want to have to go to rehab. And I'm like, they're not making any difference at the moment. I'm taking 3 a day. I'm like, I don't know how strong a dose I would need to have before they actually start making a difference. And I don't want to end up on such a strong dose that I'm going to have to go to rehab. I was like, please. So I said again, I'm like, can I please get, I went back to my doctor and I was like, can I please get get steroid injections? Because I think that would be a better plan. This pregabalin isn't working, and I don't think it's good for me. And they were like, no. And I'd said when I went to the physiotherapist, I'm like, well, is there anything you can do in the meantime? Can I get steroid injections while I wait for the nerve conduction study? And she was like, no. And I'm like, so and then I mentioned it again in this complaint letter to try and see if anyone would, would be able to do that. And anyways, they phoned me up, the patient feedback service, and they're like, yeah, we got your complaint. And they're like, we're sorry that you weren't informed of like what you were actually getting at this appointment. Like, we're sorry that you thought you were going to see a consultant. Like, someone should have made it clear that they weren't going to be able to diagnose you. And I'm like, yeah, they should have. I'm like, I shouldn't have been led to believe that I was going to go to the hospital and get diagnosed and get treatment when it wasn't that. And she's like, yeah, she's like, I see what you're saying in this letter, but like, it's just the system. And I'm like, right, and that's what I'm complaining about. I'm like, it's a waste of my time, of the NHS's time, and the NHS's money to send people to appointments that are not useful. I'm like, if you're sending me to the hospital, I'm taking up an appointment that could go to someone that actually would get something out of it. I'm like, all you're doing is wasting your own time and money by sending me to an appointment that didn't do anything. I'm like, if my GP could have directly referred me to the service I actually needed to be at, that would save the NHS time and money, which is what you need, because I know how much pressure you're under. I'm like, I love the NHS, and I do. I'm such a huge supporter of the NHS, but this is a waste of your money. And she's like, yeah, but GPs aren't allowed to refer outside of their own health board, which is why they couldn't refer you for nerve conduction studies, because that's in Glasgow's health board, and we're not. I'm like, yeah, and that's a ridiculous rule. I'm like, it makes no sense that your doctor, your GP, cannot refer you to the service that you need because it's not in your health board. I'm like, we are one NHS Scotland. Why on earth is it that I have to get referred to the hospital? I'm like, it would have been a 6-month wait for me to get referred to the hospital just so they could refer me to another hospital, because my GP can't refer me to the hospital that I need to go to. So he has to refer me to my local hospital, who then can refer me to the other hospital. I'm like, that's a ridiculous system. That is so bad. That's not a good way to operate. And she's like, no, I get what you're saying, but like, there's nothing I can do about that. I'm like, no, I know there's nothing you can do about that. I know you're not in charge, but like, I think this is a ridiculous system, and I just wanted it on paper. I want someone to know that I think it's a ridiculous system. So if one day they maybe look into it, they'll have some record of the fact that people are not happy with the system. So anyway, she's like, sorry, is there anything else I can do? I'm like, no, not really. So that was that. So I should probably explain what carpal tunnel syndrome is in case you don't know. It's quite simple actually. Basically, your arm, you have nerves. You know you have nerves. Nerves are the thing, it connects to your brain. They go all over your body and they are what allows you to have sensation. They are the thing that feels. So whenever you touch something and you feel it on your skin, it's because your nerves work. And if you have numbness, if you touch something and you can't feel it, your nerves are not working. Nerves are also what allow you to feel pain. So, when you have anesthetic, it's making your nerves stop responding to your brain. When you take painkillers, same kind of thing. It's blocking the receptors in your brain from receiving the messages from your nerves that say that they're in pain. That's what nerves are. They're the thing that makes you feel. And in your arm, you have two kind of really prominent nerves. You've got the median nerve and you have the ulnar nerve. So your median nerve runs kind of down your arm and down and up this side of your arm into your hand here, and it connects into your thumb, this finger, and the inside of this finger, so up here. And then your ulnar nerve runs down your arm, through your elbow, and up this side of your arm and into your pinky and the outside of this finger. And they go through your palm. But to get to your hand, they go through an area in your wrist called the carpal tunnel. That's where it comes from. Carpal tunnel syndrome. It's the carpal tunnel is a tunnel in your arm that goes through here. And across your carpal tunnel here is a ligament that they call the transverse ligament. And with carpal tunnel, basically, over years of using your hand, your transverse ligament tightens and eventually becomes so tight that the nerves that are inside the carpal tunnel get crushed by the median nerve. If you think of it, it's like a bridge, and over the years, the bridge starts to collapse if you had a bridge and it collapsed, it would fall into the river. That's kind of what it's like. It's like you've got a bridge going across here, your carpal tunnel is the water, and your nerves are like boats that are going through the river, and the ligament over the years tightens and crushes into, it doesn't collapse, but figuratively collapses onto the nerves, which are the bolts, and would crush them. And that's what happens. So the median nerve runs through your carpal tunnel. The ulnar nerve runs through a different tunnel in your elbow called the cubital tunnel. So you also can get cubital tunnel syndrome, which is basically the same thing, but instead of getting crushed here, it gets crushed here. And that's, so if you get the symptoms in these two fingers and down this side of your hand, it's likely cubital tunnel. And if you get them in this side of your hand and through your thumb, it's carpal tunnel, because it depends on what nerve is being crushed and where it's being crushed. So that's carpal tunnel syndrome. And the only, as I discovered when I was looking it up, the only way to prevent it from ever getting worse or coming back is to have the surgery. And what they do in the surgery is they cut through the transverse ligament, and then essentially when it heals, it'll heal back bigger. It'll grow extra tissue when it reattaches itself, which means it'll be bigger and it'll make more space. By cutting it, it allows the nerves to, it gives the nerve space to breathe. But then even once it heals, it'll heal back with extra tissue, like scar tissue, which will make it bigger than it was before, which will mean that the carpal tunnel is not so compressed anymore, and your nerve will then be able to function without being squished. And once it's not being squished, you shouldn't get the symptoms anymore. That's the theory. That's how it works. And if you don't do it, if your symptoms are severe and you don't get the surgery, then the ligament will just continue to tighten, and it will press on the nerve, and eventually it can get so crushed that the nerve dies. You can get nerve death. And once the nerve dies, you will never be able to regain function to your hand. Your hand will never be able to feel again. Your hand will work, but imagine is if you've ever had anesthetic and you know what it's like when you're numb, or if you've ever like sat on your foot and it's went to sleep and then you try to stand on it, you'll know that it doesn't work. Even though it's you still got all the bones and muscles and everything in it, when you can't feel, like you can't, it doesn't work properly. So if you just leave it and you experience nerve death, you will never regain the sensation in your hand, and you will basically have a hand that you can't feel for the rest of your life. That wouldn't be so severe if it was on my left hand, but consider that on my right hand that I use is my dominant hand. I use it to write, I use it for everything. Imagine I don't have any feeling in this hand. I wouldn't be able to live like that. That would be horrendous. And I'm like, so I'm concerned because the longer that they leave it, the more risk I am of my nerve dying. And if it dies, I'm never going to get the function back. And at the moment, the only thing that's preventing me from, right now, I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that doesn't happen. But the people who actually have the skill and the ability to fix the problem are not doing the things in their power to make sure that that happens. And so at this point, I'm getting really concerned because I'm like, I don't know how long it's going to be until I get this study. I don't know how long it's going to be from the study until I can get the surgery. I'm really concerned because what if my nerves die? What if I get permanent nerve damage? And I've done everything in my power to prevent that from happening. I've given up all my hobbies. I'm doing as little as possible with my hands. I'm trying my best to help them. I'm wearing the splints at night. I'm doing everything that I can to keep my hands safe. But if they aren't willing to help me and they aren't going to do anything any faster, then my nerves could still end up permanently damaged, and it wouldn't be my fault because I would have done everything that I could from my side of things, and they're the ones that are fannying about, basically, 6 months on a waiting list for a box ticking exercise. So at this point, I'm fuming. So where does that bring us? Oh, I know where that brings us. Okay, so bear in mind, this was the 5th of August. So the next few months are not good for me. For a variety of reasons, I'm not going to go into it. But I had a very, very stressful period of time. A variety of things happened at once. All of that on top of the fact that I was on nerve medication that was giving me side effects. I was in excruciating pain all the time. I was really concerned about my body and everything. And then I had all these other things going on in my personal life that were unrelated, but also like really stressful and giving me a lot of emotional stuff. I ended up having a full-blown mental breakdown. It was great. I haven't had a mental health crisis in, I don't know, almost, most of a decade. I suppose probably like at this point, like how long that been, like 8 years? Yeah, my last kind of proper nervous breakdown was in like 2016. So I've been doing pretty well for quite a long time. I hadn't had a full-blown mental health crisis, but I did, so that was fun. I basically disappeared for like 2 or 3 weeks. No one saw me, no one heard from me. People were worried, people were texting me like, are you even alive? And I was just like, I don't know. I don't know. If you've ever actually had like a full-blown mental health crisis where like you are so dissociated that you don't even know where you are, even though you're in your house, but you're like, I don't know where I am, I don't know what's going on, I don't know who I am. It's traumatic. Don't do it. If you can avoid it, don't do it. It's not fun. So I don't really remember that. All I remember that it was horrific, and then I got ill because I like ate some food that like upset my stomach, and I like threw up for like 12 hours straight. Yeah, so just like to add to the fun, I remember that like I hadn't been well and I was barely eating anyway, and then the thing that I ate made me sick, and yeah, it was a great time. Anyway, skipping over that. Point is the next few months were not good for me. But oh yeah, and there's that. So my nervous breakdown was kind of the beginning of November. Just as I'm starting to get back out of it, I get like a cold, or what I think is a cold. Usual thing. Woke up, had a burning sore throat, my nose was running, that kind of thing. I'm like, oh, I've got the cold. I thought that until like about a week later, it got like so much worse. Like all of a sudden, it went from just being like your standard cold symptoms to like really, really unwell. Like, I was not good. And I haven't phoned in sick to work since I was like 18. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. If you need to phone in sick to work, phone in sick. But I never do. I'm just one of those people. I'm a workaholic. I don't phone in sick. And I had to phone in sick. I know at this point I was still self-employed, but it wasn't, it's a long story. It wasn't really self-employment. It was it was and it wasn't. The point was I still had an office that I worked at remotely. So I still had a team, I still had to phone in sick. So I phoned in sick for like the first time ever at this company. And I was like, that's when you know I'm really ill, because I will turn up to work, especially working from home. I will turn up. I've turned up all through my various bouts of COVID. Like, I always go to work when I'm ill. So I phone in sick, and I'm like, I'm really, really unwell. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Whatever it was, I didn't actually recover from it until the end of January. And this is the end of November. So it went on. I was ill for 2 months straight. You just need this for context for everything. So anyway, during this time, I get my neurophysiology well, actually no, we need to go back a bit. So after I spoke to the complaints people, they gave me the number to contact the feedback team at Greater Glasgow Health Board to see if they could put me on the cancellation list for these nerve conduction studies. So the nerve conduction study is a thing where they put little hoops on your fingers that are metal, and they basically zap you with electricity. They electric shock you, and the idea is to see how well your nerves respond to stimuli. That's the idea. And if they respond really badly, then you probably have carpal tunnel because your nerves don't work. And if they respond well, then you probably don't. And that's how they test it. And so she gives me the number for the patient feedback team to see if I can get put on the cancellation list. So I phone the I phone the patient feedback team at Greater Glasgow, and I speak to her, and she's like, yeah, the wait list at the moment is 5 months. It's 20 weeks. And I'm like, okay. She's like, do you want to get put on the short notice cancellation list? And I'm like, yes, please. She's like, okay, I've done that now. I'm like, great. So that's that. So months are ticking by, and I'm like, this is really weird, because I'm like, you know, I really thought I would have got a cancellation by now. Like, I haven't heard anything. It's been months. And I actually put on a forum online, like, has anybody been to, it's the Queen Elizabeth University Hospital in Glasgow. They seem to be the only, I don't know if they're the only hospital in the country, or they're just the only hospital. I don't know if there's maybe one in Edinburgh, like, I don't know if they're only in the two big cities, or if it's only Glasgow. But they seem to be they're the only hospital I know of that does these studies. So I was like, has anyone been to the Queen Elizabeth for neurophysiology, for nerve conduction studies? I'm on the short notice cancellation list, and I just think it's weird. I haven't heard anything. And this guy responded, and he said, that is weird, because I was on that. I was put on it around the same time as you, and I got an appointment 3 weeks later. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, like, I got put on the short notice cancellation list, and they saw me within 3 weeks. And I'm like, I got put on the short notice cancellation list, and it's been 4 months. And he's like, nah, something's wrong. So I phone the QEU, and I get through to someone, and she's like, I can't tell you where you are on the waiting list. I'm like, I know, but like, is there anything you can tell me? And she's like, hold on, I'll just pull up your record. And she says, we don't have a phone number for you on file. Can I put your phone number on? And I was like, but I'm supposed to be on the short notice cancellation list. How were you going to contact me if you didn't have my phone number? And she goes, who told you were on the short notice list? I'm like, the person that I spoke to in patient feedback back in August. And she was like, oh, no, but I can put you on it now. I'm like, yeah, please, if you could. She's like, okay, you're on it now. I'm like, thanks, that's great. So I come off the phone, and once again, I'm fuming. Because what we have now discovered is that whoever told me back in August that I was on the short notice list hadn't actually put me on the short notice list. So I ended up getting an appointment in December, which is 5 months after August. So it didn't actually shorten me on the list at all. I was supposed to be on the short notice list. This other guy was on it, and he got seen in 3 weeks, and I had to wait 5 months because no one actually put me on the list, even though the woman on the phone said that she had. By this point, I am losing the plot. I am so angry. I'm like, so far, I've been misdiagnosed by a physiotherapist when she told me I had tendinitis, and I didn't. I've been sent to an appointment that was absolutely useless, that was just a box ticking exercise. I got told I was put on a short notice cancellation list when I wasn't, and they didn't even have a phone number on file for me. I am losing my grip on reality at this point. But I just keep telling myself, I'm like, once you get to this nerve study, they will diagnose you, and then you're going to be on the road to recovery. That's what you need to focus on. So 12th of December, I'm still really ill. And it was one of those things where I think in the end I ended up on antibiotics, so I'm pretty sure it was an infection. And it just was one of those things where my body would fight it off so far and I would feel better. And then it would come back because it wasn't fighting it off properly. I needed antibiotics. So I kept kind of having like peaks and troughs through the next 2 months. And the day that I had to go to the hospital, I was really unwell. I was staying at my mum's because she's closer to the Queen Elizabeth than I am. And I was like, I was so ill. She had to come down and pick me up and drive me. I was supposed to get the train to hers, but I was so ill I couldn't even get on. I was like, I can't actually get the train. So she had to come and pick me up and drive me to her house so I could stay there. And I was so ill. So I doped myself up on these, like, you know, the cold and flu tablets with the caffeine and the phenylephrine. So I doped myself up on these tablets and I trekked to the hospital. And it's the coldest day I've ever felt in my life. It was bitterly cold. And I get there, and the Queen Elizabeth is this gorgeous new hospital, but the neurophysiology department is in like a shack out the back that was built in like the 60s. It's like a little stone building out in the field behind the hospital. So you get to see this gorgeous building that's got an M&S food in it. And then it's like, yeah, but you're going to the outhouse. So off I go to this thing. And this thing, like, they only do it at this hospital, but they also only run the clinic on a Wednesday. So that's why it's so difficult to get an appointment, because they run it once a week at one hospital. So everybody in the country, as far as I know, who needs to see clinical neurophysiology has to go to this one hospital on one day a week. And this is why they have no space. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Can you not get more appointments for this? Dear God. Anyway, I'd never even heard the word neurophysiology before this. So anyway, I go along to my neurophysiology appointment, and I'm ill as fuck, but I get there. And I go in, and they actually say, the little nurse guy says to me, like, you can bring your mum in if you want. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, come on. So on we go, and he hooks me up to all these wires, and he zaps my hands. And he zappy zap, zappy zap, does it on all the fingers, zappy zappy zap. And he looks at his computer, and he's like, there's nothing wrong with your nerves. And I'm like, come again? And he's like, they're functioning normally. Look at the screen, that's like a normal reading. And he was like saying like what the normal expected numbers are, and mine were pretty much exactly that. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I get that. And I'm like, and I can understand, because I'm like, my nerves, I don't have any numbness. I know my nerves are functioning, but they're not functioning properly. I'm like, yeah. Because he's saying about how like the whole point is to see if the signals reach the tips of your fingers. Like they put them on your finger and they zap them and they see if it reaches the tip of your finger. I'm like, I know it's reaching the tip of my finger, because that's, the pain is running to the top of my finger. I'm like, I have pain all through my hands. I'm like, I know that my nerves are getting signals, but they're not normal signals. They're painful signals. There's something wrong. And he's like, well, you get lots of different kinds of pain. I'm like, and? I'm like, I'm in pain. Like, he's like, yeah, but I don't deal with pain. I only deal with nerves. And I'm like, but it's my nerves that are in pain. He's like, well, not according to this. I'm like, no, I know what nerve pain is. I'm like, I'm 29 years old. I know the difference between various types of pain. I know what nerves are. I know what nerve pain is. Okay, I've had trapped nerves before. I know what nerves are. Like, it's nerve pain. There's something wrong with it. He's like, okay, well, still, he's like, I don't know what's wrong with them. He's like, I can only go with what my computer says, and my computer says that there's nothing wrong with them. And I'm like, and I look over at my mom, and my mom looks as angry as I am. And she's like, okay, so what's next then? What did we do? And he's like, well, I think probably it's coming from your neck. And he says to me, he's like, how bad's your neck pain? I'm like, I don't have any neck pain. He's like, yeah, but like, it must be your neck. So like, what's wrong with your neck? Like, is your neck sore? I'm like, no. I'm like, I don't have any neck pain. He's like, well, pain can be referential. I'm like, I know that. Like, but you'd think at some point, considering this is now 1.5 years since this started, you'd think I would have picked up by now if the pain if I move my neck and my hand hurts, you know what I mean? Like, I know that pain is referential. Like, I get that nerves do that. I know that. I know that way that sometimes you're like scratching a spot in your leg and you feel it in your neck or whatever, you know, or you've got like a spot on your face, but then when you try and burst it, you feel a pain in your side. Like, I know how nerves work. I'm like, but I would have noticed by now if, like, you know, I'm sitting at work and the way that I move my head, like if I do this, my hand hurts or something, like I would have noticed. And he's like, I still think it's coming from your neck. I'm going to send you for an MRI. And I'm like, right, fine. Fine. I'm like, if that's going to diagnose it, fine, I'll take the MRI. So I'm absolutely fuming at this point because he's told me straight up to my face, he said to me, he's like, whatever it is, it's not carpal tunnel. I'm like, but that's what everyone said it was up until now. And he's like, yeah, but it's not because my test says it's not. And I'm like, fuck your fucking test. And I've already known because I've already looked at the internet and seen that nerve conduction studies aren't always accurate. And I have a sheet in here to prove it because I took this to the hospital with me as well. And I called it evidence. And I had it was on my there's a carpal tunnel Facebook group, carpal tunnel support Facebook group, and I went through and I found people talking about nerve studies, and this was the kind of things that I found. My right wrist was done before the test came back, and they came back negative, but surgery stopped all the issues I was having. Now they won't do my left hand as my negative results, even though it's worse than my right. Someone else, my nerve study was also not bad on one wrist, but I was having bad symptoms. When he opened the wrist, the nerve was grey and definitely compressed. I had a negative nerve study. When I went for the surgery, they couldn't believe how bad the nerves were. My study was negative. We did the surgery anyway since the shot helped only for a month. They used the shot as their diagnostic tool. I had surgery in December and definitely don't regret it at all. My carpal tunnel symptoms are gone. How reliable are EMG nerve tests? I've had a couple and each one has shown nothing major. However, when my surgeon has gone into my hand, it's shown nerves totally pinned down to the point the surgeon struggled to release it, so it contradicts the nerve study results. My nerve study was negative and they still said surgery. All my tests come back normal. They went off my symptoms. During surgery, they could see easily that the nerve was being trapped and damaged. And then this one here that I thought was ridiculous. I would ask for a second opinion as both times the carpal tunnel syndrome didn't show in the nerve test or the MRI scan, so my local hospital decided that as they couldn't find what was causing the problem, they would refer me to a specialist hand unit. And by this time I've been having issues for 2 to 3 years. At this hospital, they did the nerve test and MRI scans again and again, and the nerves were negative, when in actual fact, I did have carpal tunnel syndrome both times, once in 2008 and again in 2018, and my consultant decided based on my symptoms and a physical examination of my hand/wrist, she would go ahead and operate, and when she did, it turned out I had severe carpal tunnel syndrome and have now been left with permanent nerve damage as a result of all the test results being negative and being left for so long without any form of treatment. My CTS release surgeries on my right hand were 10 years apart, and it still baffles me today that no issues were detected at either time with my right hand. So I took that with me because I was like, I know for a fact from reading all these testimonials from people who have actually had it done that the nerve conduction study isn't always effective. And if you actually look it up online, there are plenty of academic medical studies, medical journals that say that the nerve conduction study has a false negative rate of up to 20%. So 20%, 1 in 5 nerve conduction studies will throw out a false negative. They will claim that there's nothing wrong when there is. And I'm like, that's me. I'm like, it's 20%. Like, that's pretty high when you think about it. Like, I don't know how you can take that as reliable. And there are entire studies that say, like, studies that are actually headlined, nerve conduction studies not reliable in diagnosing carpal tunnel syndrome. So I'm like, you cannot tell me to my face that I don't have it because of this. But I'm like, right, I'll go and see what the MRI says. So amazingly, they actually fast-tracked me for an MRI because I got a bunch of weird letters after this. I got one from another physiotherapist at my local hospital that said, I'm now in receipt of your nerve conduction studies. I'm pleased to say that these are all normal. I'm like, I'm not fucking pleased. Therefore, I will review you back at the clinic in due course where we can consider other options for your pins and needles. If you wish to discuss, do not hesitate to contact me. And that was sent on the 30th of December. But then on the... when was this one sent? On the 7th of January, I got another letter. So this is a week after the previous one, saying, I understand you were seen a few months ago and you got referred for nerve studies. These test results have been passed to me and they've not shown any evidence of carpal tunnel syndrome or any peripheral nerve entrapment within your arms. I'm assuming that your symptoms have continued. If this is the case, it would be sensible to arrange some further investigations. I understand you're experiencing pain in your wrists, and it would be a sensible step to arrange an MRI scan of your wrists. Additionally, nerve compression can occur from roots within the neck, so I would plan to request an MRI scan of your neck at the same time as your wrist for completeness. I will request that these be taken, and then I'll see you in my clinic once we have the results. So they fast-tracked me for the MRI, surprisingly. I was shocked, but as she says, she pushes me forward for an MRI. Even though this was the consultant. This was the thing, I got the letter from the physiotherapist at the end of December, and then this one came in January from a consultant who overrode the physiotherapist and sent me for the MRI. I'm like, I don't know where, there's some kind of weird communication going on. I don't know where this is going, because I'm like, how come he told me at the nerve consultant study I was getting referred for MRI, but then the physiotherapist said I wasn't, and he just said, well, I'll see you in March. And then she got in touch with me and said, no, you're going to have to go to the MRI and then you can come to me. It was very weird. And all the letters were coming in the wrong order as well, which didn't help. But anyway, so I get the MRI, it's the middle of January. And this was a really bad time for me to get the MRI because the bug that I'd had since the end of November has now developed into tonsillitis. I have had tonsillitis before. I'm not prone to it, but I do get it. I don't get it as much as some people, but I do get it. And it's turned into tonsillitis and my tonsils are massive. And I'm like, this probably isn't a great time to be doing an MRI of my neck, but whatever. I'm like, I'm not moving it because I'm so desperate to get this sorted. So this is now at the Golden Jubilee. I don't know why they couldn't do my MRI at my local hospital, so I get sent to Glasgow again, to another Glasgow hospital. Again, I do not live in this health board, but off I go again to, I get sent to Glasgow again, so this time my dad has to take me. So off we go, trekking up in the van on all the way to Clydebank to go to the Golden Jubilee. And I go in, and I get my MRI. I'm in there for like an hour. Never had an MRI before, so that's a fun experience. Get put in the machine for like an hour. They scan my neck, they scan both arms. So that's a fun time. I'm ill with tonsillitis. I get really ill in the van coming back because we have to go all out through the countryside and I feel sick because A, I get car sickness really easily, and B, I have tonsillitis, so I already feel like shit. And then that evening, I end up having to phone NHS 24 111 because my throat is closing up and I have to go to urgent care at 10:30 at night and get emergency antibiotics because I'm so fucking ill. So that was a really fun day. I went to 2 hospitals in one day. I went to Golden Jubilee and then I went to my own hospital at 10:30 at night. So that was great. That was a fun day. MRI results get back. They get to the consultant. And I get an appointment on the 26th of February to go and see her. So I'm like, finally, I'm seeing a consultant. And I'm not going to name her because that would out me and the hospital. But I wish I could because this woman, I hate her more than I hate almost everyone in life. So the appointment with the consultant. So I'm back at my local hospital. This is now the 4th, I've had 4 different hospital trips in the space of 2 months at this point. 3 months, I suppose, December. But yeah, I've been to Queen Elizabeth, I've been to the Golden Jubilee, and I've been to my local hospital twice. Once to get antibiotics and now for this. So I check back up to my local hospital and I go and see this woman. I sit in the waiting room for forever and then spend another like 40 minutes in the room waiting for her. She's like an hour late to the appointment. I get the hospitals are like that, but oh my god. She finally comes in and she goes, so you had your MRI? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay, well, we got the results back and they don't show anything. There's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, what? And I brought my partner in with me for this. And he's kind of relieved because there was a part of me that was like, if it's not carpal tunnel, What if it turns out it's like bone cancer or something? And I'm like, I know that's kind of ridiculous, but your mind starts going places. You know, when they're sending you for MRIs and they're telling you it's not the obvious thing, you start thinking, well, if it's not the obvious thing, what could it be? And I start thinking, you know, maybe I've got a tumor sitting on my neck that I don't know about and that's why I've got it. Like, I'm picturing all sorts of crazy things now. So he's like relieved that it's not something serious. And I mean, so am I, but I did not want to hear there's nothing wrong with you. I wanted to hear, yeah, your nerves are compressed and we're going to fix it. But instead, she's sitting there and she goes, there's nothing on the scans. There's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, no, there might be nothing on the scans. There is something wrong with me. I'm like, I have been in this pain now for coming up on 2 years. We're at 20 months on from when it first started. It started in July of 2023. We're now in February of 2025 and I'm still in excruciating pain. And it's getting worse every single day. And it was. I'm like, if you take how bad it was when I was arguing with them back in August, we are so much worse than that. I'm like, this is a condition that is deteriorating by the day. Every single day, I'm in more pain than the day before. If you were giving me rank on a 1 out of 10, we're talking an 11. Like, this is excruciating. And this is the thing that really bugged me, is that I didn't feel like people were taking how painful it was seriously. And I have dealt with pain conditions my entire life. I mentioned earlier I suffer from migraines. I suffer from migraines and I didn't know that I suffered from migraines until a few years ago, because even though they are migraines and they are excruciatingly painful, I still thought that they should have been more painful than that to be migraines, because I've been in so much pain through my whole life that I've got no context for pain anymore. That sounds ridiculous, but I have suffered with so much pain in my body ever since I was a child that I don't have a rational context for pain. What other people would describe as excruciatingly painful, I don't describe like that because I'm comparing it to other pain that I've had. I broke my tailbone when I was like 10 years old and I didn't go to the hospital because even though it hurt like hell, I didn't know that that was what that was. I did a really bad sprain in my ankle and it took me like about a month before I actually got it looked at because I didn't realize. I had the worst periods I think anybody has ever had. They were shocking, and I've always wanted to make a video about that because I think that's a whole other thing that we need to talk about in terms of like women's health. I describe them as earth-shattering because that's how it felt. I would be in the fetal position on the floor. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't get up. I had an ovarian cyst that was so painful. I had to walk with a stick for a month because I couldn't stand up straight because the pain in my pelvis was so bad that I physically couldn't walk, I couldn't get up, I couldn't sit up straight. I had to lie. I had to work from home on the couch with this laptop on my belly because I couldn't sit up to actually work because the pain was so bad. I know pain. I know pain. I see pain every single day. I am the physical embodiment of pain. And so when I'm sitting at this woman's office and I'm saying this is excruciating, I'm not kidding because I know pain. I compare everything in my life to all of these other pains that I've had and I'm not taking the piss. I know how much pain I'm in. And to be honest, if I'm complaining about it, I hate to think what it would be like for someone who doesn't have the pain tolerance that I have, because they would not cope. I'm not coping. I don't know how someone with a lesser pain tolerance would. And she's looking at me as if I've lost the plot. So I'm like, no. I'm like, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying about your scans, but this is off the scale levels of pain. There is something wrong with me. Like, I have been in this for months. It's getting worse every day. I've had to give up everything. I can't do any of the things I enjoy. I'm going to end up losing my job if I can't. By this point, I've now changed jobs. I'm now working a full-time job, full-time employment, like not self-employed. I'm full-time now in an employment. And I'm like, I just got a new job. They're going to sack me if I am in so much pain that I can't work. Like, you're risking my job here by telling me that there's nothing wrong with me. There's something wrong with me. I need you to find out what it is. And she looks at their computer with her medical records and stuff, and she's like, so do you suffer from anxiety? And I'm like, oh, don't you fucking start. I'm like, do not start with me. If you're about to play that this is mental health game. I am going to lose the plot with you. And she's like, because I see you're on like antidepressants. I'm like, yes, I do suffer from anxiety. Yes, I suffer from a variety of mental health problems. However, like my mental health was actually really good. It was in the best place it'd been in years before this pain started. I was actually doing really well. The reason my mental health is shit at the moment is because I've been in excruciating pain for over a year and a half, and I'm miserable and I can't do any of the things I enjoy and my life is ruined. That's why my mental health is terrible. And she's like, it's just that, you know, if you're carrying a lot of stress, that can manifest as physical pain. And I'm like, no, again, I didn't have bad mental health when the pain started. I have bad mental health now because I'm in pain. The pain started when my mental health was good. So it wasn't a manifestation of bad mental health because my mental health was fine. It's not, this is not pain brought on by mental health. The mental health is brought on by being in pain. She's like, yeah, but these things are cyclical. So like if you've got, you're in pain and then you're in bad mental health and then your bad mental health makes the pain worse and it's just going around in a cycle. She's like, so what it is you're actually not in that much pain. Your mental health is making your pain worse. And I'm like, right, even if that were true, there's still a pain problem that has caused this to begin with. So you need to find out what it is and treat it. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse because I'm not going to get any better if I'm still in pain. The pain needs to be treated for me to get better. So I need treatment. And she's like, but I can't treat you because there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, if you don't fucking stop saying that, I am going to claw your eyes out. Like, you're lucky that my hands are so bad right now because I don't have the ability to punch. But if I had the ability to throw a punch right now, you'd be getting it to your face. But I'm holding my own. I'm crying because I cry when I'm angry. But I'm crying, but I'm holding my own. And I'm like, but I can't do anything. I'm in excruciating pain. And she's like, well, the only thing I can recommend is that you just go back to using your hands normally because you're probably making it worse by like not using them. Like you're just exacerbating the problem. You just need to go back to using them normally. And I'm like, and I get really annoyed at this point. And I go, but I can't. I'm like, I can't use them normally because it's too painful. And if I use them, I'm going to make it worse. And she said, but you can't make it worse because there's nothing there to make worse. There's nothing wrong with them. And I'm just like, are you fucking serious? What's wrong with this woman? And I'm like, right. So what do you recommend that I do? And she's like, well, I think you should go and see a clinical psychologist. And I'm like, you did not just suggest I see a fucking psychologist. I'm like, I'm already in counselling because I'm so miserable. And you just told me that because I have nerve pain in my hands, I should go and see a psychologist. You go and see a psychologist because you're clearly batshit insane, for fuck's sake. I've literally I've never been so angry at someone in my life that I am at her. I'm still angry with her. And if I ever see her on the street, I'm going to fucking tell her to her face how much I hate her. And I'm like, okay. And what do you recommend for the pain? She's like, well, I can send you to the pain management service. I'm like, what is the pain management service? And she says, it's basically a place where you go, it's a clinic, and they like work holistically and they teach you how to live with pain. And I'm like, but I don't want to live with pain. I want it to be treated so it gets better. And she says, and I quote, and I will never forget this as long as I live, she says, sometimes we just need to be brave and say this pain won't beat me. And I look at her in her cold, dead eyes and her patronizing face, and I think to myself, what age do you think that I am? Do you think I am a 3-year-old child getting a lollipop after going to her dentist appointment? I am a 29-year-old woman who has been to 4 hospitals, 3 so far, there's a 4th coming, been to 3 hospitals so far, who has been going to medical appointments about this and on the phone and sending emails and arguing with people till I'm blue in the face for 20 months. And your advice to me is be brave. You don't think I was being brave when I was getting electrocuted at the Queen Elizabeth? You don't think I was being brave when I spent an hour inside an MRI machine at the Golden Jubilee? You don't think I'm being brave every time I phone up another person to make a complaint? I'm sitting here in front of you in a fucking hospital getting my MRI results because I'm being brave. This is me being brave. I have suffered almost 2 years of this pain. I am being brave every single day. I am coming to you now and trying to get treatment because I don't want this pain to beat me. And this is what you're telling me. You think that I'm not being brave enough? And you think that your advice, your medical advice, you're a fucking doctor, you're a consultant, you have an entire medical degree and you've worked your way up the ranks to consultant, and your medical advice is be brave. I have never heard something so unbelievably stupid in my 30 years on this planet. And I've told that story to 2 different therapists since then, and they both were astounded that a medical professional would say that to an adult. I was furious. And once again, I was very, very tempted to kick over the sharp bin on the way out, but I would only have done that if I'd known it was her that was going to be picking them up, and it wouldn't have been, because she's obviously too much of a bitch to ever help. And if she's watching this, and she's not, but if she is, I do think you're a bitch, and I hope you know that. I made it very, very fucking clear to her the next day, because I went home from this appointment and I wrote another complaint. So, where is it? Is it in here? Is it in here? Right. So I sent this to both, because she did tell me, oh, I forgot about that. She did tell me that I should really take some anti-inflammatories. And I'm like, I've been in pain for almost 2 years and you think some ibuprofen's going to help? You think ibuprofen is going to fix this? Are you fucking stupid? I don't need to be a medical professional to know that something that's been a problem for 2 years is not going to be fixed with ibuprofen, a drug that you can get for 20 pence. Are you taking the piss? Thing is, I actually had to take it because I had this weird like breast inflammation the end of 2024. I don't know where it came from. They were just like agony for like a month, and I went to the doctor and she said take anti-inflammatories, and I'm like, I'm not really supposed to take anti-inflammatories, and she's like, yeah, I get that, but like I think you really need them for this. So I took them, just a short course until I got this fixed. And I was like, I did take anti-inflammatories for a while last year for a breast problem, and it didn't help. Like, I was taking anti-inflammatories and it made no difference to my hands, so I don't think anti-inflammatories is the thing. Also, I'm like, I've already had 2 rounds of bloods so far. I think 3 at this point. I'm like, I've already had multiple rounds of bloods. I had them done when I went to the first physio. She did them. I had them done by the nurse then. They were clear. There was no inflammation. I had them done again when I went to the physio at the hospital the first time. She did a round of bloods, and they tested for inflammation markers and they were clear. I have it in this folder. I have it written down. And there was a third time. I can't remember exactly what appointment it was. I got another round of bloods and they were also for inflammatory markers, and they were also clear. I'm like, because this is what she said to me at the appointment. She's like, your MRI scan, all we can see is there's some inflammation on the back of your hands. Because she asked me to show her where the pain was. And so I did all my thing normally. She's like, it's not in the back of your hands. And I'm like, no, it's not in the back of my, why would it be in the back of my hands? And she's like, because on the scan, like the back of your hands is inflamed. And I'm like, do they look inflamed to you? And she's like, not really. She's like, and then she's looking at this one. She's like, it's really weird as well. And I'm like, what? She's like, well, on the scan, you had a ganglion cyst, like really prominently here, but there's nothing there. Have you noticed that you had like a bump? I'm like, no, I haven't had a ganglion cyst. And I'm thinking to myself, do you even have my scans? Or have you got someone else's scans? Because this doesn't sound like my hands. I haven't had a ganglion cyst. I would notice. Look how thin the back of my hand is. You can literally see you can see the veins. I'm like, I would notice if I had a ganglion cyst. But she's like, that's weird. She's like, but yeah, it's obviously they're just a bit inflamed. So like, take anti-inflammatories and they'll be fine. And I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. You are so fucking stupid. It's astounding. So that's what she says. And I'm like, this makes no sense because I've already taken anti-inflammatories. I had ibuprofen gel. I've had 3 rounds of bloods for inflammatory markers and all of them are clear. I don't have inflammation. It's not the problem. And it's not going to make things any better. And also, I'm not even supposed to take anti-inflammatories. So if I'm going to have to take a drug that I shouldn't even be taking, that's not good. But she's like, I can't prescribe you them. Go to your GP. And I'm like, oh, for the love of fucking God. So the next day, through tears, I sit and draft a letter and I send it both to my GP to explain the situation and also to my this consultant. I don't like to call her my consultant because I have a consultant now who's a lot better than her. I sent it to the consultant at the hospital secretary because I wanted her to know, and I wanted a second opinion. I wanted to be referred to someone else, and I didn't know who could do that for me. I didn't know if that would have to come from the GP or from her, but I was like, one of you is going to do something. So I sent an email and I said, yesterday I had an appointment with blah at blah hospital, orthopedics, following my 20-month battle to get, well, 17-month since the appointment is what I've written. My 17-month battle to get treatment for the pain in my hands and wrists. The outcome of this was, my nerve conduction study showed no nerve damage and my MRI showed only mild inflammation on the back of my hands. I should contact my GP to obtain anti-inflammatories. This needs to be reviewed by a GP because I'm on citalopram and I can't take ibuprofen. I will be referred to the pain clinic. However, I dispute this outcome/diagnosis/treatment plan for the following reasons. 1. My symptoms are not and have never been consistent with tendinitis. No heat, no swelling, no redness, no joint pain or difficulty moving the joint. 2. I've had 3 rounds of bloods to check for inflammation markers since November 2023 and all of these were clear. 3. During the months in 2024 when I took ibuprofen, it had no effect. I also used ibuprofen gel for months and it had no effect. 4. It's unusual/unrealistic for both hands to be inflamed for almost 2 years with no improvement. 5. As a result, I do not believe inflammation is the cause of my symptoms. The tendons may be inflamed, but this is not what's caused 20 months worth of severe pain and tingling. 6. My symptoms are consistent with nerve-related issues such as carpal tunnel syndrome, cubital tunnel syndrome, or thoracic outlet syndrome due to the tingling, shooting pain, electric shock sensation, and the fact my symptoms are worse in the area where the median nerve sits in my hands. And 7, a private physiotherapist did physical tests, which gave the result that it was highly likely that I had carpal tunnel syndrome. Because this is the thing, I'd also been going for acupuncture, because my dad has a private physio, and I went to see him and got acupuncture, and he also looked at my hands and did a bunch of tests and said that he could actually feel that the nerve was compressed when he was like doing his physio stuff. And when I tried to bring that up to her at the appointment, she was like, well, like anybody can like say anything if you're paying them money. I was like, you're so full of it. And she also, that reminds me, she did a phalanx and tunnels test while I was there, and she's like, well, that's strange because that suggests that you do have carpal tunnel, but you don't because I can see it on the scan. And I'm like, well, then why the fuck did you do the phalanx and tunnel test? She obviously wanted to prove a point. She wanted to do it and know that it's wrong, but like she wanted to do the test so that she could say, see, you don't have it, and all it did was prove that I did, and she still wouldn't listen. So anyway, then I said, I'm also unhappy with the recommendations from consultant due to the following reasons. 1. I was told the best thing to do is use my hands normally. I cannot do this as using my hands causes excruciating pain, which is the entire reason I've been going through this process. 2. I was told sometimes we just have to be brave and say this pain won't beat me. Again, I cannot do that. I quoted that, by the way. Again, I cannot do this. The same way you cannot regrow a lost limb through the power of thought, I can't use positive thinking to make my hands less painful. I thought that line was maybe a bit snarky, but I was like, you know what? You fucking deserve it. 3. I was told the condition would not worsen over time through the use of my hands, despite me making clear that the condition has worsened since it began, and I can provide evidence of this through records from the hobbies which I had to abandon last year due to the pain becoming too painful to continue. If the pain had not worsened, I would still be able to use my hands, but I cannot. 4. I was told steroid injections are not used for tendinitis. Oh, that's right. I asked her if I could get steroid injections, and she said, well, I would if you had carpal tunnel, but you don't. So instead of actually trying the steroid injections to see if they would help at all, she just said, no, because you don't have carpal tunnel. Stop saying that you do, you stupid little bitch. My computer says that you don't, and my computer knows everything because I'm the smart doctor and you're an idiot. No, because whose diagnosis was right? Mine. And whose diagnosis was a crock of shit? Yours. Whatever number we're at now, I was told I would benefit from seeing a clinical psychologist due to the impact on my mental health. However, there was an implication that the pain may be related to my mental health history and that my mood is the reason that my body is in pain. My mental health was actually the best it had been for years prior to the pain starting, and I was about to come off citalopram. My mental health is now very poor due to the pain, not the other way around. No further investigations were offered, despite me having no medical resolution. The solutions I like are these: a second opinion from a hand/wrist specialist, a further consideration of carpal tunnel surgery, acknowledging that carpal tunnel can be present even when it does not show on imaging or in a nerve conduction study. And then I quoted a thing from PubMed that says electrodiagnostic evaluation of carpal tunnel syndrome, which states that electrodiagnostic testing recorded as high as 10 to 50% false negatives in CTS diagnosis. There are also other studies that say 20, like I said earlier. Investigation into thoracic outlet syndrome, a condition which often presents similar to CTS and is overlooked as a result. Expected referral to the pain management clinic. High-level painkillers or non-inflammatory, non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs in order to treat the pain. So far, this has not been provided, and the only one I was given, pregabalin, was ineffective. The above two completed ASAP, acknowledging that my first e-consult on this problem was in October 2023, and I still do not have an acceptable diagnosis or treatment plan. And I ended it with this. Sometimes we must listen to the human being in front of us and not to machines. I am the human. I know my own body. I know my own pain. A computer only knows what it is told. Please listen to the human. I do not dispute the consultant's expertise. I do, but I didn't tell her that. I appreciate her stepping in and sending me for an MRI when it seemed no one would take me seriously, but she has not listened to my body, and it needs to be listened to. So that was the complaint I sent. My GP said that there was no hand-wrist specialist in my health board, and she's like, I can't refer you outside of the health board, which of course is what I'd already been told before about the whole nerve conduction study thing. But amazingly, I ended up getting a letter from the consultant. It is in here somewhere, but I don't think I would need to rummage around for it. It was very short and sweet. It basically said, I'm sorry you were unhappy with the outcome of our appointment. I've referred you to consultant at other hospital. And I was like, haha, you hated reading that, but you fucking deserved it. And I really hope one day I see you again so I can tell you to your face. So I get referred to this other doctor, and I don't want to, again, out him and out where we live. It's at another hospital because it's a different hospital. So this is the fourth hospital of this whole experience. This is the thing that sends me to the moon, because I'm like, what do you mean it took 4 hospitals to diagnose a condition that is as common and as simple as carpal tunnel syndrome? It is so common. Loads of people have it. It's so simple to diagnose, and it's taken 4 hospitals and 2 consultants to get a diagnosis. Well, 3 if you include the dude at neurophysiology. 3 consultants, 2 physiotherapists, a GP. Are you 3 actually? Because there was a physiotherapist at my next appointment. So 2 consultants, 3 physiotherapists, 2 different GPs. Have you all lost the plot? Anyway, so she refers me to this guy, and I look him up online, and I see that he's actually in an article about a woman who had something wrong with her hand that meant that she physically couldn't use her hand anymore, and she'd went through so many different studies and so many different doctors and so many different treatment plans, and nothing had worked. And then she got operated on by this doctor and another doctor, these 2 consultants, and they gave her back the use of her hand. And I was like, you might actually be the one that finally saves me. I really, really hope so. And that was why I made this file, to take to him and be like, this is what I've been through, help me. So I go to this appointment. I can't remember exactly when it was. I think it was April. It was April. So this is now April of 2025. I go to this appointment, and I go in, and lovely man, and he's like, do you mind if I stand at my standing desk? Would that make you uncomfortable? And I'm like, no, by all means, stand all you want. And he's like, and I brought in this lady. She is a physiotherapist, and I want her to help so we can both look at this and see if we can get to a result. I'm like, yes, that would be great. Thank you. So he says to me, he's like, I've got your MRI results and I've got all the paperwork from your previous appointments, but I don't think it's actually that beneficial for me to go through it all. Why don't you just tell me what's happened from your point of view? So I just go into it, and I'm just spewing information. I'm just babbling to this man. I was in this appointment for an hour. I felt so bad because my dad had taken me to the appointment. He'd sat in the waiting room. If I'd known it'd been that long, I would have sent him away and he could have got some lunch. I'm in there for an hour, and I'm telling him everything, and he's like, Okay. And he's listening, and him and the physiotherapist are discussing things, and I'm saying, and she told me that it's just inflammation, and I'm like, do they look inflamed to you? I'm like crying, and he's like, no, they don't. I'm like, exactly. So I'm explaining everything, and he's saying, so, and he's doing different tests. He's like doing like a Phelan Stennels test, but he's also like doing different things where he's touching different bits of my hands and seeing how I respond, and he's doing all these different things. And then he says, I'm gonna check other parts of your arm. He's like, I'm gonna check your elbow and stuff. So like he presses in like my elbow and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I mean it's quite uncomfortable. And then he goes like this, and he presses here, like just under my, like just below my armpit, and he presses something, and I like yelp. I actually like yelp in pain. And then the two of us just look at each other and look at my arm, and I go, oh. And he's like, that's strange. I'm like, I didn't even know that was a thing. And he's like, So he's like, there's definitely something wrong with your median nerve. He's like, because that's what that is. That's what I just pressed. There's something really wrong with your median nerve. It shouldn't be doing that. And it certainly shouldn't be doing it all the way up your arm. So he's kind of talking to the physiotherapist. He's like, yeah, this is a weird one. And he's saying, I'm saying everything to him about the tingling and everything. He's like, yeah. And he says, it makes a lot of sense why it wouldn't show up in the nerve conduction study in the MRI. He said, because they are working, but they're almost working too well. He's like, it's not, quite often with carpal tunnel, people get numbness because their nerves shut down. Yours nerves seem to be working overtime. He's like, they're almost supercharged. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And he says, basically, and he's like, I can't confirm it, but my theory is that you do have carpal tunnel. The nerve is being compressed, but instead of shutting down, your brain is acknowledging that something's wrong with it and is sending extra signals. It's basically firing all of the neurons or whatever. It's firing everything it's got into your nerve, into your median nerve, which has essentially lit the thing on fire. It's working way too hard. So all the way up your arm, your median nerve is way too sensitive. There is a word for this. I think it's hypergeusia or hypergeusia. It's like, how you have like analgesia. It's like hypergeusia. I think it's that. Basically, your nerves are oversensitive. And he's like, so instead of, when you touch something, you're supposed to be able to feel it. He's like, but when you touch it, you feel pain. Like, your nerves are too sensitive. So every sensation, it feels like pain to you. And they're like that the whole way up. Like, your whole nerve is too sensitive. It's working too hard. It's as if it's supercharged. He says, and that's not standard symptom for carpal tunnel, but he's like, well, like any condition, you get cases that don't match the textbook. And he's like, and I would call this an atypical carpal tunnel syndrome. And to actually hear the words, it's carpal tunnel, after all this time of people being like, no, it can't be, it doesn't match, it's not on the scan, blah, 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 and that bitch at the other hospital being like, there's nothing wrong with you, you don't have anything, you can't make them worse because there's nothing there to make worse. To actually have someone say, no, there's something really wrong with you and we need to diagnose it. I could have married him. Like, I was so emotional. And I was just like, thank you. Finally, someone has actually listened. And I was like, and once he explained it, it made a lot of sense. But as he said, like, why it hadn't shown up in the scans and why they'd struggled so much to diagnose it, is like, because it doesn't fit the textbook definition. But what he also said was, it shouldn't really matter because it's our job as medical professionals to figure that out. And we know that not every case is a textbook case, and we know that some people's symptoms, it's like you can get, I can't remember what the term is, but it's basically like where your condition does the opposite of what it's supposed to. So if you have a condition that's supposed to cause fever, it can cause chills. If it's supposed to cause, loss of appetite, you might end up really hungry. Like it does the opposite of what you would expect it to do. And he's like, that's basically what we've got here. You would expect numbness and for the nerve to shut down, but yours has done the opposite, where it's going oversensitive and working too hard. But he's like, we shouldn't dismiss it just because it doesn't match the textbook, because we know that people are not a monolith, bodies are weird and the body does things sometimes that you don't expect it to do. It doesn't mean it's not what you think it is. He's like, regardless, there's something very wrong with your median nerve. And he was like, how rapidly has this worsened? So I was telling him, I'm like, I went from, it was, it was coming and going, to it was constant, to I couldn't do any of the things I wanted to do, and now I'm at the point where I can barely do anything, and that's in the space of less than 2 years. Coming up on 2 years now. We're in April, but less than 2 years. And he's like, yeah, that. He's like, that shouldn't. And he was like, yeah, it shouldn't be progressing that fast. He's like, you have people with carpal tunnel who can have it for 20 years before it becomes so bad that they go and seek medical treatment. He's like, there is something very wrong with yours, and it does seem to be quite severe. For it to have deteriorated that quickly, this is a severe case. It's not mild. He's like, your tests have come back as you don't have it at all. I would say you've actually got it really bad. It seems quite severe for it to have worsened so rapidly and for it to have caused such extreme symptoms. He says, but to just make sure, I'm going to give you steroid injections to diagnose it, because they can use that to see if it does help at all. If it does help the carpal tunnel expand and it does provide some relief, then they can use that as a diagnosis. And he says to me, he's like, this can be quite painful. So just to warn you. And oh my God, that was the most, I've had a lot of needles stuck into me throughout my life. Vaccines, blood taken, acupuncture. I've had a lot of needles stuck in me. Jesus Christ. Steroid injections are the worst. It was so painful. And he's like, you all right? I'm like, yep, and he's like, no, you're doing really well. I was like, yeah, it's really painful. And he's like, yeah, no, you're doing really well. I'm like, that's the thing. I'm like, this is really painful, and this is all you see. I'm like, this is what I've been trying to tell people. It's just because I don't look like I'm in pain. It's just because I've got a really high tolerance. And he's like, no, you clearly do, because he's like, I've seen, much larger people than you being much, have a much stronger reaction to this. And areas with a lot more skin, a lot more flesh to deal with. I'm like, oh no, that's agony. That really hurts. But this is all you get from me because I'm so used to it by now. He's like, no, I can understand. Like, you obviously do have a really high tolerance for pain. So the steroid injections worked for about a month. Some people, like I said, get it for like a year. I got it for like a month. I didn't expect miracles. But I went back and I was like, yeah, it did seem to work, and then it stopped working. And he's like, fine, we'll take that. We'll book you in for surgery. So in July of 2025, I got this one done. You can see the scar. It's pretty much all healed. You can't even really tell that's what it is. But down the center of my hand there, that's the surgery scar. It's all healed. And in January 2026, I got this one done. And you can't see it because I haven't got the stitches out yet because it was done last week. And when he opened up my hand, he said to me, do you want to see the nerve? And I'm like, yeah. And the nurse is like, why? And I'm like, I just kind of do. I kind of want to see what's been causing me the problem all this time. So he showed me it inside my hand, with the wound open. And he's like, there it is there. He's like, it is pink, so it is healthy. But yeah, he's like, it was compressed. And when he opened up my left one, obviously it had been left another 6 months longer than the right one. Because they tell you not to get them done at the same time because it is really difficult to function with a hand that's like, and the original bandage that you get at the very beginning is huge. And it is difficult. It's difficult to function with one hand. It's impossible to function with neither. Because, how are you even going to go to the bathroom or anything when you have no hand, So they tell you to get them done separately. So I did. Yeah, and when he opened up the left one, he's like, the nerve is healthy again, but it was very squished. So that will be where it's been coming from. So he is very confident that both hands should get relief. My right one is not completely fixed. I still get sensation, the tingling sensation, but it's not like it used to be, and it can take up to a year for carpal tunnel to fully recover, like for the nerves to kind of properly fix themselves and heal. So, it'll be July before I can say that I'm like at the end point of recovering from this one, and then January of next year before I can fully be at the end point of this one. But I do definitely feel a difference. We are definitely making progress. My right one is a lot better than it used to be, and I have a lot more function in it than I used to, because I wrote a list of like symptoms to take. I wanted to like try and make a point, so I like wrote down like an explanation with a terrible drawing of some hands to take. And I said to him, I'm like, I wrote down just this and like a timeline of events by hand, and my hand felt as if it was vibrating for the next 2 days. It was so symptomatic, basically, that like even just writing down a page of notes and doing a very rudimentary drawing of some hands, I spent 2 days where basically I couldn't use my hand at all because it was so bad. Now I can actually write with my right hand and not have these problems. I haven't tried anything really any more complicated than that. I haven't tried drawing or anything, but I can hold a pen and I can write, which is a huge improvement. So yeah, that was the story. That was what happened. And it should not have taken 2 years and 4 hospitals to get me a diagnosis. I mean, we're at 2.5 years now. Just to get my second surgery. It should never have taken that long. But as you can see, I was messed about by pretty much everyone apart from my final consultant, who's the only person who took me completely seriously and actually wanted to find a solution. And I'm just really glad we have people like him in the world, especially in the medical profession, where there are people like that other consultant who clearly are not in it for the desire to help people. And if it's not a case that they think is worth investigating, they just won't do it. They're not there to actually find out what's wrong with people. They're just there to do the surgery that they know how to do and get paid and go home. And I get not making your job your life, but if you choose to go into the medical profession, you should be doing it because you want to help people. That's sort of the point of the medical profession. I don't know why you would do medicine for any other reason than wanting to help people live. I truly can't think of any other reason to join the medical profession. And if you're not doing it to want to help people, then you shouldn't be in it. Go and get another job. There are plenty of other jobs out there. You shouldn't be working as a consultant if you don't actually want to fix people. But thankfully, he restored my faith in the NHS by actually helping me and spending an hour with me figuring out what was wrong and not just saying, there's nothing wrong with you, go home. Yeah, so that was the whole story. I haven't been able to do basically anything for the past couple of years. I haven't really been editing videos because it was too painful. It was too painful to use a computer, and considering I have to use one for work, I really didn't want to use one outside of work. I haven't really played a lot of video games. I'm behind on everything. I wanted to play Dragon Age the Veilguard, even though I know a lot of people criticised it, but I love Dragon Age. I just wanted to play it. I want to play Clair Obscur. It was the game of the year. Everyone raved about it, and I couldn't join in. I haven't got to play Spider-Man 2. So many things have come out that I'm like desperate to play, and I can't play any of them. I got really into the Zero Escape series though, because you don't really need any sort of dexterity to play that. So I'm playing Zero Times Dilemma at the moment, and I'm loving it. So that was a nice thing, I suppose, to come out of it, because I probably wouldn't have had any reason to get into the Zero Escape series if I hadn't been looking for something that I could play with like very minimal hands. So that's a nice thing, I suppose. I'm glad I got to discover that. I played The Rue Trees Are Dead. That did hurt my hands, actually, because like there's a lot of like highlighting text. But I played it and I had a really great time with that. But there's a lot of stuff that I wanted to play that I just haven't. I got Final Fantasy 16 not long before I gave up gaming. I just got into Disney Dreamlight Valley, and I got House Flipper 2, which I'd been waiting for years because I love House Flipper. So I got House Flipper 2, and I've barely even been able to play it. I never got to finish Death Stranding. So many games that I just really wanted to play and I haven't been able to. I played through Alan Wake 2, but by the time the DLC came out, I'd had to stop playing, so I've never got to play the DLCs. I did buy them, but I've never got to play them. You know, now the new Control is going to be coming out, and I'm like, am I going to be in any shape to play it? I don't know. I miss playing The Sims. Every now and then I just so desperately want to play The Sims. I miss Skyrim, like, you can't even believe, because Skyrim was so my comfort game that I could just put on, you know, when I was having a bad day, and I would just go and do something, you know, I would just go and do a thing, like I would do some fetch quests, or just climb a mountain, or ride my horse, just hang out in a pub. Like, I just liked being in Skyrim, and I miss Skyrim so much. Yeah, so many of my comfort games, and I just miss them. I miss Tomb Raider, I miss Uncharted, I miss Max Payne, I miss The Last of Us, I miss all of the things that I just loved so much. I miss drawing, I miss sewing, I miss Assassin's Creed, for the love of God. I was in the middle of replaying the Ezio collection for my channel, and I never got into Revelations because I had to give up. And I usually play Assassin's Creed 2 like at least once a year, and I haven't played it now in years, and I miss it so much. I just want to put on Assassin's Creed. I don't even care if I had to play Shadows. I don't even care if I had to play Odyssey. Actually, no, I wouldn't play Odyssey. But, like, I just miss Assassin's Creed. I just miss the world. I'm sitting staring at my game collection right now, and there's so many games I just miss. You know? I love gaming. It's such a huge part of my life, and I want to play Bratz Rock Angels, like, and I just can't, and it sucks, and I just feel so incredibly detached from the world. And I think that's the thing that people don't get, is it's like, when you have a hobby, it's not just that you can't engage in it, but you can't even engage in the world. Like, I spent all summer last year, you know, watching the gaming showcases, as I always do in June, knowing full well that the stuff that was announced I wasn't going to be able to play. I can't engage. All my friends were into Baldur's Gate 3, and it was like all they talked about for a while, and I couldn't join in, even though I was desperate to play it. I couldn't play it, and I couldn't engage in any of the conversations. It's like staring at the world and you can't get in. It's like, you know, it's like Taylor Swift, I look in people's windows, you know? I attend Christmas parties from outside. It's like I'm constantly in the outside looking in at a world that I used to be part of, and I'm not anymore because I can't engage with it. My friends are sharing their art in Discord, and I can't join in because I can't do any art. You know, my friends that are into cross stitch are posting their cross stitches, and I can't post mine because I can't do any because I can't cross stitch. It's like, and that's not me shading anyone, because I'm happy for other people that they can do it. I'm glad that they aren't in the position that I am. It just sucks when you can't engage with people about the things that you used to talk about. You can't talk about gaming because I don't have any gaming to talk about. I can't talk about art, I can't post my art, I can't share in these things, I can't join in like Inktober or whatever, because like I can't do anything, I can't do these things. And yeah, it just sucks. It's like I get together with my friends who are normally, we talk about games, and they're like, I can't talk about anything because I'm not playing anything. Like, or we would get together and we play Among Us, but I can't really play that because my hands don't work. And I just feel like I spend my whole life going, I can't really do that because my hands don't work. And I know everyone's sick of hearing about it by now, and I'm sick of talking about it, but it's like, it's not just the fact that it's like physically painful, it's emotionally painful, that it's taken a huge amount of the meaning out of my life. And I was talking about this with my therapist recently about the kind of existential crisis that you get left with when you can't find meaning in life, when you don't have meaning and you don't know what your purpose is. And it's like, I took a lot of meaning from my hobbies and from the things that I could create from being an artist. And to have that taken from you, you're just left with the feeling of, well, what am I now? It's like if a footballer, you know, gets into an accident and like loses a leg, and it's like, but that was my whole life, was kicking a ball, and now I don't have a leg. And yeah, you can learn, you know, people sometimes try and make me feel better by saying, well, look at like the Paralympians, you know, they manage. And it's like, yeah, but just because other people can manage to do these things with disabilities doesn't mean I can. And I can't. I can't, you know, if you lose a limb and you get a new one, you learn to, you know, you get a prosthetic one, you learn to use it. But the point is that I still have hands, but I can't use them and I can't replace them. I just have to wait until they one day maybe function again. And I don't know if I'll ever regain full function. I don't know if I'll ever be able to create the art like I used to. I don't know if I'll ever be able to game like I used to. I don't know if I'll ever be able to play a game that, you know, involves a lot of buttons, or if I'm always just going to be playing cozy games because my hands don't function. I don't know if I'll ever be able to play Final Fantasy 16 because the bosses in Final Fantasy are really difficult. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that again. I don't know if I'll ever be able to play Final Fantasy Rebirth. I played remake and I loved it, and I was so excited for the next part of FF7, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to play it because I don't know if I'll ever be able to do the boss battles like I used to, because I don't know if I'll ever have the dexterity in my hands again. I don't know what my life looks like now, but at the very least, it's an improvement over where I was a year ago. It's an improvement over where I was 2 years ago. I'm making progress towards healing, but I don't know if I'll ever actually be fully healed, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to engage in the world the way that I used to. But at the very least, I should be able to make YouTube videos again, because I've managed so far. Made a few. Well, two, but I managed. So, with any luck, that's at least one thing I can put back into my roster of hobbies. And hopefully, with time, I'll be able to play some things again. Even if I have to play Skyrim on the easiest mode and I have to play Uncharted on Treasure Hunter or whatever, you know, I've become really into gaming accessibility options these days. I've always been a big proponent of accessibility, but it used to be because I struggled with, like, you know, migraines and motion sickness, and I can't play FPSs because I can't, because of the motion sickness. But now I have a whole bunch of extra problems with that, you know, that I need accessibility options. So I've become really into accessibility for gaming. So that's a nice thing, I suppose. It's a nice thing to have a I found some sense of purpose in campaigning for game accessibility and, you know, learning a lot about accessibility options and different accessible controllers and gaming setups and gaming with your feet. I've become really into learning about gaming with your feet. I keep joking that I'm going to become one of those people that plays Dark Souls on a dance mat, you know? Yeah, so that's where I'm at. I can't think of anything else to add right now, but if I do, I'll say it and I'll add it. But yeah, thank you for coming with me. I know it's been a really long time and I know people have missed me making content. Trust me, you don't miss it as much as I miss making it. It sucked. I had a whole list of videos. I literally had scripts written for stuff and I never actually got to make them because I couldn't. But hopefully I will. Hopefully I will eventually. And you'll get to see my face again, whether you like it or not. Yeah. But I am making some content with my friend Jules over on her channel, so be sure to go and follow her. My friend Julia Hyde, go and find her. I've made a post. You can find it linked. It's in my channel and my channel posts. You can go and see some stuff that I made with her because she's editing it, so it's not such a big problem. Yeah, but hopefully I'll have some new stuff out in time, and hopefully one day I'll play Clair Obscure. Hopefully one day I'll play Clair Obscure, and when I do, I'll talk to you about it. But until then, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in whatever I post next. I don't know what it's going to be. You'll find out when I do. Okay, bye everyone.